Hello everybody, it's Preacher, and it's time for Monday's Mailbox. Loads of stuff coming in since we did the first one, which is awesome. Glad to see people getting back on the bandwagon and sending us some questions. Links down below, so you can email us some stuff. First one came in from T-. T-, what, I wonder? About healing. Talking about the idea that Blizzard said they don't want people being topped off in Warlords of Draenor. What they want to do is allow people and healers to actually heal people up without the fear of them dying, and therefore not just spamming away. Is it something the player base will have to adjust to, or is it a problem we will like? Well, what I read in this is everything that healers want. Is right now, healers have this really horrible feeling that if they don't immediately heal someone to 100%, they are going to die. They are going to die. And the only way to counter that, it's a cyclical problem, is by making it so you can spam constantly. Constantly heal all the goddamn time. So what we're doing, and I'm guilty of this, but in the respect that that is how the game worked over Mists of Pandaria, is in my guides I was like, dudes, you basically have a set fucking rotation here with healing. Which is not really the way this healing is supposed to work. Healing is about watching for when the danger's coming. One of the big strategies I always held to when I was doing my healing guides is get used to seeing your boss timers, because more than any other class, even more than the tanks, you need to be aware of what's going to happen to the entire raid. Not just the tanks, not just the DPS, to everybody all the time. And then you can make judgments on what you should be casting. It's great that Blizzard gave us these nice, cheap, slow heals, which are relaxing and kind of the filler, similar to what DPS have, and similar to the tank's filler between his big moments, is that you can actually spend some time healing people up. The problem is, and why this becomes an issue and why they want mana to count, is as soon as gear gets to a stage where a healer isn't going to go right? You're not going to go out of mana as a healer. There is absolutely no reason to stop casting major heals. There's no reason for it whatsoever. So then Blizzard has a huge issue with encounters, is how do we even make this remotely interesting for healers, because we've given them so much gear that now they get to just spam their ass off, and therefore nobody's taking enough damage. So now we have to put them in a situation where they have to spam their ass off. Otherwise people are going to die. And yeah, it's a big issue. That's what they're really trying to solve. Is this something the players will have to get used to? It depends who you are. Heroic healers probably won't struggle with this, especially if you've ever healed at the beginning of an expansion. I would really love, and I'll find the link for it, for people to go and check out the pre-expansion healing discussion I had with Blubzar of Darkstorm, again, fully heroic, did everything a long time ago, and Elfie, aka Apco of Method, the monk there, about healing in a new expansion and what it's like. And they discussed in detail, is like, we spam our asses off until we find the equilibrium of where we're going, and they talk in detail about the thought process that goes into healing. For those guys who've experienced that, not going to be a problem. For the guys who are learning in LFR, gonna be a big issue, because those guys spam their fucking asses off, because more than likely, and I'm pretty guilty of this, they've come to a guide like mine and they've gone, oh, I just do this and I win. And then it runs into all kinds of issues when the fight is a little bit longer than normal and they just haven't really grasped the essence of occasional relaxing heals. Even on my guides, I use occasional relaxing heals. I'll throw out some nourishes, or I'll throw out some holy lights here and there, because I know from experience, it's a gut instinct. My fingers do it for me, is that, you know, judging by the health percentage of the boss and my percentage of mana, and when my mana comes off cooldown, I need to throw out some cheaper heals here, or I'm going to be in trouble towards the end of a fight. What do we often see now with the LFR guys in particular, is they come up against something like Iron Juggernaut, the Kor'kron Dark Shaman, and they're in a whole world of dog shit. They're in a whole entire world of dog shit because they are used to just spamming their asses off and bosses dying quick enough that it's not a problem. The LFR guys might struggle with it, but having said that, and I'm sure this question is aimed at the fact that we're going to need more healers in the future, right? We always need new players. Something people never really get with the forward-looking we do on this channel, especially the real smuggy elitist guys at the top end, is you need new players in the future, because your players are going to leave. And where are they going to come from if you keep shitting on everybody? Is that those guys might not encounter this if they still stay in their LFR mindset. Maybe we won't even see this in the normal mode. Normal mode in Warlords of Draenor is going to be easier than normal mode now. And if you've been doing heroics, you kind of understand how trivial normal modes actually are, right? There isn't anyone amongst you who's not done more than a couple of heroics and gone, normal mode is really boring. It is, but only realize that after you've done something more difficult. They're going to struggle, but they'll get used to it. And that's okay. They'll be fine. They're going to get used to it because that's how the game works. They'll either get used to it or they'll abandon their healers. And therefore, you're losing a player who isn't willing to learn. No big deal. No big deal, right? Anybody who goes, oh, this is too hard, I don't want to play anymore. That's fine, because what you don't want is them to come up against some strong encounter in the future which needs some learning, has a little bit of a different twist to it, and suddenly they fall apart there and then. That's okay. That's okay. It kind of does weed some people out in one respect, and it's a worthwhile change. Because what we hate to see is what's happening now, happened at the end of Kata, happened at the end of Wrath of the Lich King, is bosses just have to put out constant, very serious, dangerous damage. Or healers have just got nothing to heal and nobody's in risk of dying. You can't have a fight where nobody can die. Because that's just not a fight, is it? You might as well just bring... You shouldn't be able to solo heal Garrosh Hellscream, but you can. Because healers are so powerful now. Because of the way that the game works. Interesting stuff. Thanks for that question, though. That's awesome. Next one came from Jason about Wildstar. A couple of things worry about this question. It's a very long one, so I'm just going to give it brief. Is that he wasn't a die-hard fan of World of Warcraft, but he's been checking out Wildstar, and he's decided to dedicate the next few years of MMO time to Wildstar. Are you going to give it a try? The usual stuff. Okay, I spoke about Wildstar a couple of times. There's a few things I like about it, a few things I don't like, but ultimately it didn't tickle my fancy. I have been speaking to the Wildstar guys. I said this on the web show. Is that the Wildstar guys got in contact with me with a beta key and said, you know, come and try this game out. You obviously had an MMO-centric channel. I did. And then I said on the web show is that, you know, it was fine. I actually said it was a really good MMO. It just wasn't different enough for me to want to transfer my time over to it, which is the major problem I have with most new MMOs, is that they're not trying enough to change the game, that I don't see the point in changing the game, right? It's okay to say their intention is, I mean, I've seen some defensive arguments about Wildstar in particular, which is they're not trying to reinvent the wheel, preacher. Then why should I change my wheel? Is my questions that I put to those guys. Is I don't get it. It just feels really odd to me. It's like someone coming to me with the new Razor Naga and saying, preacher, you should try the new Razor Naga. And I go, whoa, why? What's different about it? It's orange. And I go, I have a blue one. And they go, yeah, but this one's orange. That's my feeling on it, right? And some of you will be really cynical about it. And Wildstar is a touchy subject for so many of you. And I don't want it to be. Because recently the NDA was lifted on Wildstar. And what didn't happen? Overwhelming praise didn't happen. And more of you realised that. I did get a few emails which were kind of like, is it true? Is it not that amazing? Or, you know, this kind of attitude. It's a fine MMO. It's a fine MMO. And they did contact me again, getting back to the point. This Wildstar did contact me again and say, you know, we've changed a few things around. Come and give us another try. Come and give us another try. And I said, maybe. Maybe. I'm not seeing the Mr. Pandaria beta coming. And I'm nothing personally against Wildstar. So if there's nothing going on, well, sure, I'll go and check it out. No big deal. My problem is that the insinuation that you've decided to dedicate years to it, that really worries me a lot. There's so much hype. Don't buy into the hype that much that you're like, this is my next game. This is my next game. That is really scary to me that you would think that, because we've been burned so many times. So many times. I don't know if you've played it or if the people listening to this have played it and are also of the mindset that this is going to be my next MMO. I don't know how you can say that. How can you say that? A lot of people probably said the same thing about Diablo 3. This is the game I'm going to play, and then look what happened. The same with Aeon, Conan, Star Wars, The Old Republic, all these fucking games. Is that this is the game I'm going to play, and it's going to be amazing and awesome, because we buy into the hype. We're all guilty of it. We all buy into the hype. All I can say to you is, I've tried it. This is all I'm going to say. It's fine. It's fine. There's a few things I like, a few things I don't like. Same with World of Warcraft. A few things I love, a few things I don't like. But ultimately, it didn't do anything new for me. It was a different skin. It was like a skin add-on, essentially, for me, with a few extra little tweaks thrown in. A lot of people, the PvE is really, really hard. That depends on what you've been playing. If you've been stuck in the LFR forever, maybe, yeah, it is going to be. You're going to find it quite difficult. For me, no, not at all, really. I didn't get it that much. In fact, some of the bosses are totally borrowed from World of Warcraft to the point where it's almost embarrassing. I don't know how close trademarks work on it. I forget the name, but one of the earlier dungeons you'll do in Wildstar, if you've ever done Heart of Fear, yeah, you're gonna go, oh, I know this boss. I've done this boss countless times if you've done Heart of Fear before. And that the direct ripping of a boss from WoW, I found really odd. Really, really odd. Because maybe it's even ripped from another game in WoW. I don't know. But as far as I'm concerned, the first time I saw that exact boss was in World of Warcraft. And then when I went into a dungeon in Wildstar and this guy was describing the boss and he's saying to me, oh, yeah, okay, so he's going to do this and this. And I was like, I've done this boss before a lot of times. It can't really be the same, can it? And then the boss started and I was like, oh my god, this is exactly the same boss that I've fought before. And actually, most of the mechanics that I saw in the Wildstar bosses are things I've dealt with before as well. Again, not changing the game, not knocking Wildstar for it. That's what kind of works. In terms of the difficulty being attractive for me, no, because I didn't find it that difficult. I can't say I raided, obviously. I'm not going to be that presumptuous to say, well, I did the raids. And a lot of people who've done the level 50 raids are saying they're fantastic. I'll just hold my breath, as I do with all MMOs now. And I get that you guys want the next big thing. I do too, and that's the God's honest truth. I've wanted the brand new thing for a very, very long time. So it's a subject that keeps coming up, is we want the next big thing. And I've wanted it for years. I'm happily done with WoW. Gotta know that. I'm happily done with WoW, but until something... But I love MMOs. That's the important thing. I love MMOs. I love the way they play. I love working with a large group of people to defeat something. But I'm not really looking to invest money and time into someone who's not trying to do something different. Because I don't get it. From a personal standpoint, I just don't understand it. Right now, I might check out Wildstar again. They've asked me to, and I have no issue with they think they've changed enough to really sort of tickle me. I'm kind of dubious because I would have... I've got to say, I would hope for a complete reworking of the game in order to really tickle me and heighten my senses. But until I get mock beta, yeah, sure, maybe I'll give it a try out. But until then, I'm not committing to anything, is all I'm going to say. And don't buy into the hype that much that you're already dedicating years of your time into a game that's not out yet. That's really scary. Don't do that. All right? Last one came in from Titan Warlord. Such moniker. Much wow. Like that name. Like it. Breacher, this question is similar to last week. Is it okay to queue as a tank for heroic dungeons as DPS? I'm 559 item level and pull ridiculous deeps. I'm able to solo any mop heroic. I don't see why people threaten to kick me when I'm truly carrying them over 70% of the damage and I keep threat. Any comments would be great. Thanks. The problem is that mop heroics are so fucking bad. That's the problem. I have to ask this question though. Let me lay this one on you. Why are you in there? What are you getting out of those dungeons? You can't be after gear, obviously. Valor points can be attained far easier and faster ways. So I asked that question, why are you in there? When I see... My problem is this, right? Are you at fault for doing that? No. Because you probably take less damage than a freshly dinged tank anyway, right? In that gear, you'll have so much health and so much armor, and you'll die so fast that you'll just take hardly any damage anyway, so it's not a big deal. I don't get it. You're still queuing as a tank. It's not as if you're in there and ruining another tank's experience. That I really don't like. I really don't like DPSers in ridiculous gear, queuing as DPS, and then just soloing the instance. Because there's a tank there who perhaps, and I have this hope of hopes, don't I? I have this hope of hopes that tank might be in there just trying to learn and practice some things. Because I've been a fond information giver that 5-mans are a great way to learn tanking because you're constantly exposed to different or constantly changing scenarios. Whereas in a raid, you're kind of stood in front of a boss swapping taunts for the most part. And it's kind of... LFR is a terrible place to learn tanking. So if there is a new tank, I like the idea that they're going in a 5-man and trying some things out. They're not quite ready for challenge modes, but they're going in there and trying some things out. But this isn't the case. You're queuing as a tank. You're pulling, I assume, and you're destroying, and you're more than likely taking... you don't say what class you are. I kind of have this picture that you're a DPS warrior. If you're a Shadow Priest or something... Oh, no, if the things are dying that fast... A mage would be a pain in the ass, maybe. Even mages can still take some damage if they're not played right, or they end up frost novering things, which cause the other DPS to take obscene amounts of damage because they're melee. I don't know what class you are, but I'll assume you're melee just for the sake of this answer. Is that... you're taking way less damage. Things are dying so fast that it makes no difference either or, whether or not you're actually in like a full protection spec. So, no, I don't see it as a problem. The fault lies with Mop Heroics being so awfully, awfully bad. And therefore, I don't get why people would want to kick you. But I would even open the door to the purists, of which there are many. One only needed to step foot in the WoW forums to see how purist everybody is. And purist isn't a word that gets thrown around a lot. Elitist, sure. Everyone's an elitist who doesn't agree with me and has a higher item level. But the purists, they can be as much of a pain in the ass as the elitists. And the purists are, you are tank. You should be full prot spec. Everybody should be maximized in gears for this trivial content. And I use that silly voice because it's trivial content. I see this a lot in leveling dungeons. Or I used to when I actually had to level anything. Is that I would go in as a warrior and be able to wear full heirloom gear, which destroys those dungeons by default because you're not supposed to be in that kind of gear in there. And then just cleave the fuck out of everything, do all the damage. People would just be running behind me and then complaining that you should be in tank spec. And I don't get it. What are you talking about? And it's this purist idea that everybody should be doing anything. A raid should be purist. Like I said last week, if you're queuing as a healer and actually DPSing, you're just a dick. But if you're trying to make 5-man content in Mists of Pandaria, like the heroics, into some kind of fucking challenge mode, then no. Just no. Because it isn't. It just flat out isn't. It's just trivial garbage dungeons that are very pretty, but literally are made of foam to be cut in half by anybody who goes in there. And in fact, one of the biggest problems with Mists of Pandaria heroics is they're so easy that if you get somebody who's a dipshit in there, they can make the dungeon harder than if you were on your own, or there were two of you. On more than one occasion have I had people join a 5-man, see they didn't like the dungeon that was selected or whatever, and instantly leave or go AFK and just get on with it with one other guy and have a great old time. Then suddenly other people get involved and they're absolute wildcards, Tasmanian devils, doing all kinds of crazy nonsense that me and the other guy who know how to play and make the dungeon harder. Like, I had no chance of dying before you started helping. And I find that's the truth of the Mists of Pandaria heroics. If you're queuing as a tank, dominating the DPS, everything's dying super fast, I really don't see the problem, because that content is a waste of time anyway. And that's what has to be said. It's a waste of time anyway. If you were in there blocking a tank from learning to do anything, that would suck. That would suck. But most of the time I see healers at full mana complaining that you're not wearing a shield. Get over yourselves, really. That's me for today. I'll see you tomorrow, guys. Be good.